Today we will be analyzing the poem The Chimney Sweeper by William Blake. Do you have any idea what this poem is about? If you thought no, you're wrong, because the scenes you just saw from the 1800s describe what is going on in this very poem. To be an expert in chimney sweeping, an insider in Blake's life, and an analyzer, we need to follow these steps.
This is an overview of what we will be talking about today. Author's life, historical background of the 1800s, purpose of the poem/message to the audience, literary elements.
Valerie, what are you doing? We need to get to work to analyze this poem.
Irene, I'm following William Blake. So, I think these pictures he posted will give you a little bit of an idea of who William Blake was. So, as a child, William Blake came from a very modest family. His family had a small shop in the industrial streets of London. He had very poor education, although he was able to study in the arts later on. But William spent most of his time roaming around the streets of London and watching the atrocities that occurred during this time.
You're going to get to look at my pictures in just a second, but first, let me take a selfie.
We all know William Blake was into selfies also. So, here's another picture of the industrial scene of London during Blake's time. Blake was very disillusioned by the atrocities going on, especially child labor. During his life, William experienced vast visions of angels and God. Although at the beginning his parents were quite skeptical of William's visions. A Russian mystic told his parents that William was a mystic and he would prophesize about and write about things that would bring change.
Oh, look, what is that?
This, Irene, is a picture of child labor during this time. William Blake was against these atrocities. Blake was a very rebellious man, and he was against the usual social norms of society. Because of this, he strived to fix society and to show the cruelties and atrocities committed by the industrial society in which he lived. This rebellion that William desired was in his nature. He was against all of society's corruption. Throughout his lifetime, William wrote different poems. His first set of poems were Songs of Innocence. Songs of Innocence explained that in order to find enlightenment and self-realization, one must look through innocence. Through the pathway of innocence, one can find self-understanding. Later on during his life, William became disillusioned with society, and he realized that innocence was not all that was needed to find enlightenment. So, Songs of Experience came as a sequel to Songs of Innocence and explained that experience as well as innocence were needed to reach full enlightenment.
First, we need to learn about the historical background of the 1800s. In the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution was going on, and although this brought many advancements to England, society's morality was questioned, and child labor became very common. Children were forced to work in factories because owners saw them as cheaper, more manageable, and less likely to strike. It wasn't until later decades that it was clear that what these people were doing was brutal. Many children were forced to work as chimney sweepers, like the ones you saw in the video at the beginning. These young boys were forced to climb the hot flues of chimneys that were many times as narrow as 9 inches. This was extremely dangerous because they could suffocate, get jammed in the flue, or even burn to death. At night, the boys were forced to sleep in soot sacks.
Throughout the poem, Blake describes the anecdote of a chimney sweeper and his friends as they seek to find comfort and liberation from their oppressive lives. Blake aims to emphasize the dangers and beauty of innocence that have been trampled on by society's norms. He also tries and succeeds in instilling pity in the reader for the children.
Blake has an important message for society. First of all, he criticizes the Industrial Revolution for bringing about immorality and for bringing about child labor. And then second of all, he also persuades the audience to stand up against injustices they see in the world. This is very important because he accomplishes this through the use of literary devices in fulfilling the purpose.
The point of view of the poem is first person, as is evident through the use of pronouns in the first stanza. In the third stanza, it is clear that the narrator is transcendent since he is describing the dream from the point of view of Tom Dacker.
The structure of the poem is composed of 6 stanzas and 4 lines. The rhyme is AABB. The rhyme becomes irregular towards the end of the poem as Tom awakes from the dream. The musicality of the poem contrasts the sad anecdote which is being portrayed. The structure of the poem also makes it more lively and almost as if it is being said to a child.
Valerie talked about how the rhyme and meat of the poem kind of made it seem like a lullaby for a child, but in reality the tone is quite the opposite from that. This poem is very pessimistic and it's criticizing society. It's describing the situation as like foreboding and oppressive, and in reality it is a critic. The poem not only criticizes industrialization because it makes children work and live oppressive and harsh lives, but it's also criticizing religion to a certain extent. In the poem, Tom dreams of a brighter future in which angels liberate him from this hard life, but when he wakes up, he realizes that that was just a dream. This false hope that religion gives to the children is also criticized by Blake through his use of setting and diction. So, setting is crucial. First of all, setting is what influences the author to write the poem. Like we talked about before when we discussed the characteristics of Romanticism and what was going on in the 1800s. This was a very dark period. In addition, the poem contains a contrast between industrial and pastoral setting. The industrial setting can be seen in the first 3 paragraphs when Blake discusses and describes the factories, the soot, the chimneys, the dark atmosphere in which the children live. Then, in the last 3 stanzas in the dream, one can see the pastoral and rural setting and all the good things that it symbolizes. There's a huge contrast between these two, as one symbolizes oppression and the other one liberation, musicality, liveliness, purity, and nature. After the dream, the child wakes up in a cold morning, yet he feels happy and warm. This idea of on the outside it being dark, but on the inside him feeling hope, is what Blake uses to criticize religion.
So now, I will be discussing repetition and pronoun. So, in line 3, William repeats the word weep, weep, weep. This was something that caught the eye of both Eden and I. So, we figured out that this has a double meaning. First, it shows the child's desperation and need for rescue from his oppressive situation, but also demonstrates the young age of the protagonist by demonstrating the child is unable to say the word sweep. So the pronoun your is also used in line 4. By saying that it is your chimneys, the author engages the audience, making this a global issue. It makes it seem as if the child is sweeping our chimneys, fulfilling the purpose of the poem.
What is a poem without symbolism? This poem has 3 particular ideas that are symbolized. First, the coffins in black mentioned in line 12 represent the chimneys and the dark life that these children are summoned to live. Second of all, in line 13, the word key is used to represent the idea that the angel will come and unlock the hardship of these children's lives, liberating them and setting them free from this prison that they're said to live in. The third literary symbol used in this poem is the washing in the river. In line 16, in the dream, after being freed by the angels, the children are able to wash their hardships in the river. This symbolizes them washing away their sins and forgetting their past. At this point, the children also leave behind their bags and forget about their past. And in this case, the bags are kind of like a metonym for their labor as chimney sweepers. Alliteration is also very important. The words sweep, sweep, suit, and sleep all have the S sound. And although S sounds soothing and melodic, it is actually emphasizing the hard life that these children live. This brings together these three words, representing the simplicity of these children's lives by emphasizing that all they do is sweep and sleep in bags of suit.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Oh, you interrupted my prayer. But now we can talk about biblical allusions in the poem. So, angels, seen throughout the poem, represent liberation from evil. To a certain extent, Blake criticizes religion by saying that it gives a false hope to the children who suffer a life of abuse. The angel also symbolizes death because it is the children's only salvation. Although they were just born, they already wish to leave the world which oppresses them. How sad is that?
Every poem has a theme, and in this case, the theme is dark versus light. This theme can also be seen through the setting in which the industrial cities are compared to the pastoral setting, and through the tone in which one can see the pessimistic and oppressive life versus the melodic structure of the poem. Now going back to the theme, you can see darkness through the situation that these children live in, with the chimneys, the soot, and the coffins, and the child labor, and then you can see light in the child's lively attitude and in the beautiful dreams they have, even though they live a very hard life. The title of this poem is very important, The Chimney Sweeper. As you can see, the word sweeper is singular. It doesn't have an S at the end, even though the poem talks about a lot of sweepers, Dick, John, Noah, Tom. But in reality, the reason why the title only refers to one is to parallel the fact that by society they are viewed as one person. This society fails to identify their human rights and fails to identify them as people worth of something. They just see them as one large group.